And here's my latest time sink. So I have a new DodecaHexaFlexagon, which has 12 sides, you can tell by the name. I found a very, very cool YouTube video from a man, I believe his name was Michael Antila, and he hand colored his so that not only did the sides make interesting kaleidoscope patterns, but because some of the states had the triangles rotating, it aligned different corners and different centers and made for a way to traverse all of the possible states by following the colors. Now, I tried to reproduce that by watching his video many times and slowing it down and taking screenshots, and also watching his tutorial, which I did not find all that helpful, unfortunately, because he glossed over some of the key points. But I made several of these. This ripped. I also tried using different kinds of glue and tape to see what would work best, and paper and cardstock, Mod Podge, glue sticks, liquid glue, spray, fixative, all sorts of things. And I'm not sure if I'm really happy with any of them, actually. I will go more into these obviously in a minute because I've spent weeks and weeks on this. So this was one of my first prototypes where I just built one out of white paper and tried coloring it similar to how he had, and then numbering various parts of it so I could try to follow how it went, but that was pretty hard and kind of a waste. And then I tried making one in CorelDRAW, which is my favorite graphics program, similar to how he hand colored his. He used colored pencils, and his was absolutely beautiful. There were, at the corners of each triangle, very intense colorations, and they sort of went into a much lighter one. So I tried what tools I could to grade it, graduate it, whatever, gradient fills. Very interesting how the gradient fills change when you rotate the object, though, so I had some challenges with that. But I liked this one with sort of the light colors, but it was a little bit too light. It was hard to distinguish between the orange and the reds, for example. So I decided to basically make this more intense. With the fills, they are still gradient fills, but harder to tell, and they fill the sections almost completely. So it's more vivid, it's possibly easier to follow, but I'm not sure it is any prettier. This one I sealed with Mod Podge to make it, I like the finish on it, to make it more durable, hopefully, and resist more use with the hands. But Mod Podge tends to want to kind of stick it together where I didn't want it, and so it makes noise, and I'm not sure it really helped all that much. But it still is very pretty, and I wanted to try to find a set of materials that I liked, and glues and coverings, to make a bigger one, and I still wasn't very sure. So it's interesting. But I finally settled on, after many of these, a larger one so that I could pretty much demonstrate what all I've learned. And I painstakingly set out to map how to get through the whole thing, which I believe, in the optimal way, I believe it's called the Tuckerman Traverse. I tried following Michael's way of doing it, but he did a different kind of flex than I did, and I tried doing my pinch flex, which is pinching these away, sort of a mountain fold. That didn't work. I thought the whole thing might work just in reverse, but it didn't. So I finally had to try to do his, which are reverse folds, bringing centers in. And then I came up with a legend for what these faces are, and assign some arbitrary numbers. So here's a legend I made of the sides. Now the numbers are just arbitrary because he started with red, which was a solid 1, so I numbered it 1. It really probably shouldn't be, but it doesn't matter. So as I've said here, numbers are arbitrary, and for my reference, those of you know about DodecaHexaFlexagons, there are 12 faces, so we have 12 different faces. And the solid colors, it's hard to tell that the triangles rotate at some points, or if they do. But with designs, or in some cases where I've built these that have photographs on it, it's easier to tell. So with these, it's very interesting how they look when they rotate. So what I've called this is 2, for example, this tricolor one, where, sorry, it went out of focus there, where purple is in the center and red and blue are at the side. 2' is where blue is in the center because they've rotated. And 2'', I'm calling it, is where red is in the center. So we have that for the 3 tricolor ones. There are basically 3 states. Notice how the centers basically change. And then there are 3 sides here that have multiple colors. And so they really change interestingly and beautifully when they rotate. So here's 3, for example, which is basically a triangle in the center that's yellow with a hex in the middle that's red. 3' is that same color set rotated where we have the triangle in the center that's purple with blue and yellow center, and 3' is a blue triangle in the center with purple and green. And then we've got similar 3 states with number 4 that has no green, and with number 5 that has no purple. So those are the sides, or I call them faces. And the interesting thing about DodecaHexaFlexagons is, of the 12 faces, there's a set that are called alphas. Those are the ones that are the most easy to get to. In my particular case, these are numbers 3, 4, and 5, so those are the multicolored ones. And in the Tuckerman Traverse, where I go through all of the stages to get to all of the colors, you will see that each of these appear on the front 3 times, so they do show all 3 rotations, which is pretty cool. Betas, there's 3 of those, and in my particular case, they are the tricolor ones, so they're numbers 2, 6, and 9. 2, 6, and 9. And even though they have 3 states, on the front, they will only show 2 of those states. If you saw the reverse, you would see the 3rd, but on the front, basically, the betas only show twice. And then, fascinatingly to me, enough anyway, the other 6 then are the solid colors, so 1, 7, 8, 10, 11, and 12. They're often referred to as gammas, and they appear on the front face each only once. So if you didn't have a map and you just tried to flail through and find them, they're trickier to find. And if you've seen any of my other videos of my trying to flex through even just a 6-sided one, it is tricky finding those very last ones because there are limited paths to get to them and sometimes only one path. So, of course, I had to make a map of the paths to get to what all we're doing. So, I'm using the reverse flex, which is what Michael used. I did say that this is my take on his YouTubes. This numbers business about alphas, betas, and gammas is pretty much what I just showed you on the legend. And what I say here is that the colored hexagons are the front faces. The gray hexagons are the reverses, and identified only by number, and then you'd have to look at the legend that I just showed you to actually see what those are. There's really no reason to look at them except possibly when you start out to make sure you have the right reverse to start. And then the arrow color labels, so like in this case, yellow, or blue, those indicate which corners we're going to bring to the center using this reverse flex. And then the arrow alphabetic notations, so like A and B and C, and then toward the end B, B, C, C, those indicate the optimal order of traversing. So, as we saw before on the legend, since the alphas each, there are 3 of them, and they each have 3 states that show on the front, that's 9 nodes. The betas, there are 3 of them, and they each have 2, so there's another 6, making 15 nodes. And then the gammas, which are the solid colors, each only have 1 appearance on the front face, so that adds another 6 nodes. So in total, this diagram shows the 21 nodes, and those are each of the colored hexagons. And then if you saw this closely, you can see those gray hexagons behind it. So like this is the 6 prime prime, and a picture of it that shows on the front, and behind it would be the 7. Or this is the 10 in front and the 3 prime prime behind it. So we can flex this according to this map and go through all of the colors in the quickest way. And if you counted the paths, since we have alphas from A through Z, and then A, B, B, C, C, and D, D, we've got 4 more. There are 30 paths to get to all of these. So even though on my paths I've indicated what colors to flex, the way Michael did it is what makes this brilliant, is we can basically flex the color that we're working on. So let me make sure that I'm starting with the right red. So number 1 shows us that it's 1 on the front, which we know is the red, and on the back is 2 prime prime. So let me just consult the legend again. The legend 2 prime prime is the multicolor, the tricolor with red and blue and purple. So this is the wrong reverse. So I'm going to pause for a moment and go to the right reverse. I probably should have done that on camera, but basically all I needed to do was flex it again and turn it over so that I have the right starting point, which we can see down here is we're going to start with the red, and it's oriented such that 2 prime prime, which we just saw was this tricolor one with red in the center, is on the reverse. So this is the right way to start. And we see if we do the A flex, we're flexing red. I only put that there just as a note because we know we're flexing reds, because that's really all that there are here. So to do the reverse flex, we're going to take the basic dark red part. You can see there's a little bit of a gradation there. Gradient. I need to figure out what the right word is for that. Anyway, and we need to bring these to the center in a reverse flex. So instead of doing the pinch flex, which I normally do, which is away from me, we're going to bring these to the center. And so we're going to bring these all to the center to touch, and then we unfold from underneath. So if we did that correctly, that should take us to the next node in the path. Let's see if it did. So we have that one, which is the blue center. So that's right. So that's 2 prime. And if we wanted to check, 3 should be on the back. So let's move over quickly to our legend, see what 3 is. 3 is, please focus, okay, it's the multicolored one with the orange and yellow, or possibly red and yellow triangle, and the red pentagon in the center, so that's correct. So let's turn it back to the outside and proceed. So following along in this path, oh, I should have had that standing up, but that might confuse us, so let me put that down, sorry. Okay, so we're going to follow along in this traverse, but you don't need to read the labels because, as Michael did, we're just going to flex the reds. So we don't want to bring the purples in, that's not what we're doing right now, we're doing the red. So we're going to bring the red corners in, and that takes us to this, different face. We're going to bring the red, so we're still following red. We're bringing red in. Brings us to a different face. We're bringing red in. Also has the blue with it, but basically we're concentrating on the red. And now we have red and yellow, but we're still concentrating on the red, so we're bringing the red in. And we're at one of the tricolors. So we have red, orange, and yellow, but we're bringing the red in, so we're going to bring those in. And we now end up at orange. So now we're going to follow the orange. So we'll bring the orange corners in. And we have this face. We've got more orange. It happens to have some green, but we're paying attention to the orange, so we'll bring the orange in. Now we have this one. Bringing the orange in. Now we have this pattern. We're bringing the orange together with the purple. And you might notice that when we get to these solid colors, there are a lot of layers of paper there, and so it has a little bit of trouble starting to rip a little bit, which is why I'm trying to find different ways to protect these. But anyway, we're now at yellow. So now we follow the yellow. So we're bringing the yellow corners in. We have this pretty pattern. Bring the yellow corners in, so we don't want to do that because that's orange. We want to bring the yellow corners into the center. So now we have yellows. Bring those into the center. We have yellows and reds. Bring those into the center. We have yellows and blues. Bring those into the center. Now we have this. So we have the yellows. We'll bring those into the center. It's getting hard to fold, so you know we're coming up on a solid color. And now we're at green. So we're following the green. We'll fold green corners in. Now we have green and purple. So green. Rotate it, but we do have green with orange, but we've got green, so we'll bring those in. Hard to fold, so we know what that probably means. And now we're at solid blue. So we'll bring the blues in. We'll bring the blues in. It's a pretty pattern. We'll bring the blues in. I just love this. The thought that went into this, both for him and my trying to reproduce it. We're on blues. We're bringing blues in. And we have blues now with red. But still, the operative point is the blue. And now we have that. So we'll bring these blues into the center. It's getting hard, so we know we have a solid. So now we're at purple. We'll bring the purple into the center. We've got a nice six-sided star pattern, but we'll bring the purples into the center. We have the tricolor with the purple on the outside. We'll bring those into the center. And we've got that elaborate design. We'll bring the purples into the center. And voila, we are back at red. And if you notice, that reverse is where we wanted to start again if we wanted to reproduce the path. So what we just did is just followed this path, basically flexing red with A, and then the reds on that one. On path B, we got that. We flexed reds on C, we got that. We flexed the red and blue, and still we're just paying attention to the red, so you don't really need this map. And then we flexed up to there and followed through and basically followed each of the paths and the nodes and got through all of the states as optimally as we could. So I hope you enjoyed that. I thought it was really, really fascinating and interesting, and he did a beautiful job at the way he designed this. Much more interesting than just solid colors or patterns, but very fascinating.